All right, guys, let me know if you can hear me. Can anybody hear me? All right, guys, I apologize. It looks like we got kicked off of our feed. So we are going to do this inside Zoom just to make sure that we are still able to give the presentation, and then we will send it out and make sure that everybody has the opportunity to watch it, even though we're having some technical difficulties right now. Okay, guys, so thanks all for coming. We are excited to be bringing this training to you. Nutrition periodization isn't new. In fact, it is a method widely used throughout the sports nutrition community, but outside of professional teams or collegiate teams or individuals who work with experienced sports dietitians, I do not often see it applied or even talked about. This is really surprising to me because for any athlete or person who takes their training seriously, this is something that should really be applied regularly in order to get the best outcomes for your training. So today we are going to be covering a few topics around nutrition periodization. So what we want to do is we want to start off by talking about the why of nutrition periodization. Why nutrition periodization is essential to level up your training. We want to talk about what nutrition periodization really is and what it isn't. And we want to talk about how you can apply it regardless of where you are in your training now. And at the end of this webinar, I'm going to give you some information on how you can work with me personally on implementing this method into your programming. And my hope is that after you get this small amount of information today, I can make you feel like you are going to start winning at high levels or higher levels with your training programs. So who is this training for? Why am I here? Why are we here? Why are we even wasting our time today? Nutrition isn't as easy as just eating healthy. Once you reach a certain level or have been training for a respectable amount of time, you really need to level up your nutrition knowledge. And what I tend to find is that people a lot of times will remain stale in the way that they do their nutrition. Many times your training program or knowledge around training will evolve as you get more experienced. You spend more time under the bar, your training age increases, but disappointingly, many athletes' nutrition plans never really do the same. They never really evolve, which is a shame because your training will only ever be as good as the nutrition that supports it. And this, this one drives me crazy. This is not high-level nutrition for athletes who want to excel. It's easy, but also just not appetizing, especially after your 100th meal of chicken and rice. You can't tell me that you haven't, at least one time in your programming, sort of just done only chicken and rice and broccoli. Nutrition periodization, once understood, can open the gates to being able to consume better tasting foods, more high quality foods that can still get you the outcomes that you want because you will get a better understanding of what your body actually needs and when is the appropriate time to consume those foods. might be making some progress towards your goals, but you know that you could see better outcomes or achieve results and achieve them more consistently if you could really get a handle on this nutrition piece. If you could really figure out what's going to be the best way for you to program your nutrition in a way that's going to support your training. I get it. I hear it all the time. You know, we spend 1 to 2 hours a day training, possibly more, but yet we fuel 3 to 5 times per day. And we are still just not addressing how all of these opportunities to really impact our training could be maximized. I mean, think about that. You spend more time eating. You spend more opportunities eating than you do actually training, and yet you're giving more emphasis to your training than you are to your nutrition. That doesn't mean necessarily that nutrition is more important than training, but your training will 100% be limited by your nutrition and the amount of energy, fuel, substrates that you have available to you. So I know that nutrition isn't the sexy piece of training, isn't the sexy piece of reaching your goals, but I would argue that it's definitely one of the most important. Hopefully you guys will agree. Now, this is a major reason why I do what I do and why I do it in the manner that I do it. One of the most common complaints, or some of the most common complaints that I get from the individuals that I work with, are they are just tired of going to see nutrition professionals, dare I say even dietitians, and they're not really getting the information that they feel like they need. And I really feel like with how available training information is, how mainstream it's become, how easy it is to get a hold of high-level training programs, that nutrition really hasn't followed suit. It hasn't evolved in the same way. And especially the way that we teach individuals how to manage their nutrition hasn't evolved in the same way. And I think that's really doing a disservice, especially to those individuals who need it the most, those individuals in our communities who need to always be performing at their best, okay? Now, it's my personal belief that athletes should be empowered to be able to program their own nutrition in accordance to their outcome goals and their training. I think this is important because, one, if you're not taking your nutrition seriously, right, then, you know, how seriously are you going to be taking your whole programming, your training? It's that whole adage of, you know, if you teach a man to fish versus just giving him a fish, right? We want to teach you guys how to fish. You shouldn't have to pay a coach forever to be able to manage your nutrition. I will tell you that and I'll probably say this a couple of times during this, is that I really believed that those who do the best with their nutrition, those who excel, are the ones who do for themselves, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about next, is those who excel do for themselves, okay? I can't coach you forever. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't want to coach you forever, because I feel like if we've been coaching for a certain amount of time and we're just having the same conversations kind of over and over again, then I really haven't done my job. And being able to give you this information, being able to empower you through coaching, through educating you up, through doing things like this through the free webinar, this is really where I think nutrition educators, especially dietitians, need to take their coaching. This is really what they should be giving you guys. So this is why I do what I do. So off of my soapbox. So I really feel like if you are willing to do for yourself, okay, and learn, then that should tell you that you are invested in something, right? So think about the last time you didn't really want to do something. How much effort did you put into it? Maybe you just don't know what to do, and that in itself can also be a barrier, and that can lead to indifference, right? So we want to address both of those. And if this excites you, then that tells me that you must be serious about your goals. If you are ready to tackle it, to learn it, to do it on your own, with my help, of course, then you must really want this thing. If it doesn't excite you, well, thanks for stopping by. Okay. But for those of you who are excited to be here and excited to learn, let's just go ahead and start diving into it. So let's talk about nutrition periodization and what it is. Nutrition periodization is a method of structuring nutrition in a systematic way to support training demand, as well as individual performance and body composition goals. While performance may be our primary goal here, we must understand that a good nutrition program can help us find the sweet spot between body composition, performance, recovery, right? So a key piece of recovery is nutrition programming. And a key piece of performance is recovery planning, okay? Recovery is something that I also tend to find that individuals struggle with, right? They don't necessarily address recovery in their long-term or even short-term programming, okay? And, we're not going to necessarily get into strategic recovery planning today. Again, this is something that I typically would teach my individual clients, but it's part of the nutrition periodization method, right? So make sure that as we're going through this, we'll touch on it a little bit, that you are paying particular attention to the recovery piece, especially if you're someone who works in the tactical space. Now, it doesn't matter who you get a nutrition or meal plan from. It's really all just cookie cutter stuff, right? Unless you are taking responsibility for your own programming. Even with my own clients, the ones who excel, again, are the ones who are highly involved in the process. And also, this gets you away from maybe some of the boring meals that you had before. My clients get really excited when I'm doing the programming for them, and we're doing it in a periodized way. And throughout different training cycles within their program, they're able to eat things like homemade cheeseburgers, waffles, things that they wouldn't normally be able to do if they were still kind of in the old mindset of what they were doing previously before we started working together. So this really opens up a lot of options with your nutrition when you understand how foods can fit into this periodized model, how they can fit in with your training, and when you're really doing things smartly and not haphazardly or in ways that are beneath the level of training that you're at right now. And nutrition periodization is a part of the bigger process that I work on with my clients. The progressive performance process is a method that we've developed to help individuals continually making progress throughout their training life. When you're implementing the progressive performance process, this helps you put together, so this helps you evaluate, reassess, and sort of structure things out in a way that keeps you progressing regardless of what level you are at. So it doesn't matter if you're a beginner, it doesn't matter if you're more experienced. When we're taking the right steps, this is going to help you get to that next performance level that you're trying to get to. So who would benefit from the progressive performance process? Well, I'd like to say everybody, right? But I mean, not everybody is really going to be willing to invest the time in this. But if you have a desire to have more control over your nutrition programming and personal health, this is definitely worth making the effort for you. The best nutrition and performance coach for you is always going to be you, okay? And you're probably a little confused by that, right? Because you're like, Susan, you're the dietitian, you're the sports dietitian. Aren't you supposed to be the expert? And yeah, I mean, that's true, right? So I have the education, I have the experience to help guide you. But at the end of the day, you're the one who lives inside your body. You're the one who feels what it feels like when you're recovered or not recovered. You're the one who is going to be doing all of the work. So at the end of the day, while I might be guiding you, you are really going to be the one who's going to be driving you. Okay. You are going to be the one who's going to be telling me how things are going for you on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And again, if you're invested in this, if you're really excited about this, you should be the one who's making the decisions with your programming, with the guidance of a coach. But at the end of the day, it's all you. And if you want to make nutrition more intuitive and easy for yourself, nutrition periodization is a great place to start because it allows you to think critically about what you're doing with your nutrition and your training. Okay. Because if you want to be more successful with your training program, you got to incorporate some of these steps that you might currently be missing. Okay. So if this is you, then you're definitely in the right place. And I went over this a little bit earlier, but if you are not incorporating nutrition periodization, then your opportunity for maximizing your performance is going to be missed. When you are not using a complete process like the progressive performance process, then you're really only getting some of the picture. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, we talk about calories and macros in meal planning, in nutrition programming, as if that's all that there is. When in reality, there is so much more. Calories, macros, it's like step 5 in the process of having a really great structured program. And we really need to start at step 1 so that we can see everything, so that we can have a good viewpoint on what's going to make us the most successful. Now, I will tell you that what I'm going to teach you today, it's not easy. It takes effort. You'll have the opportunity to learn what you will learn when you work with me. What I'm going to teach you today and what you will learn when you work with me is that this is not necessarily the easy button. So if you're coming in here and expecting that you're not going to have to do any actual work, that is a mistake. This will always take effort. Anytime you're trying to do something to take you to that next level of performance, and it doesn't even matter if it's training, it can be education, it can be job, it could be anything, right? It's always going to take a little bit of effort. It's always going to get you out of your comfort zone a little bit, but it will always be worth it, okay? So if you are ready to move to the next tier, then what we want to do is we want to give you the tools to do that. So we're going to talk about some things that you can focus on. These are things that are part of the progressive performance process that you can start implementing now. And again, if you're going to be working with me in the new year, and again, if you're going to be working with me, this is something that we would implement into your coaching program. So earlier I said that you're only focusing on calories and macros, you're only getting part of the picture. So what does the rest of the picture consist of? Okay, so during the progressive performance process, we're going to start with a self-assessment piece. And the self-assessment piece is extremely important because this is going to tell us exactly where you're starting from. It's going to give us a look under the hood, essentially. One of the things that often happens is I'll have individuals who come to me and will tell me that they want this and that. And, I want to be bigger, stronger, leaner, faster, whatever the case may be. And usually their thought is that, oh, they just need a meal plan. But there are going to be those individuals, some of them, who need a little bit of a deeper look at their metabolism, who need a deeper look at their lifestyle factors, who need a deeper look at their current and previous nutrition habits to really be successful moving forward. And this is part of the individualization of the process, right? This is where we are figuring out where you are as an individual and how we can customize your programming. So when we're looking at the self-assessment piece, one of the first things we want to take into consideration is your nutrition history. And by nutrition history, what that means is what you've done in the past with your nutrition. Are you somebody who chronically diets all the time? Maybe you have an issue with getting meals in consistently on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you're someone who has a difficult time with managing your food intake based on your schedule. Maybe you're having an issue with meal planning, meal prepping, whatever the case may be, right? All of this is going to play a role, especially the underfueling piece. Because if you are chronically underfueling, skipping meals, then there could potentially be a problem with your metabolism. Maybe it's not as efficient as it should be. Maybe there's too much metabolic adaptation happening, and your metabolism is just not going to respond as well to certain types of nutrition programming or even training. And then we look at your training age, right? So training age is important to know because, again, that's going to play a role in how responsive your body system is going to be. If you have a young training age, meaning that you haven't spent a lot of time under the bar or training on specific programs, resistance training, weightlifting, whatever the case may be, then you have a lot of potential, right? You can pretty much throw anything at your body in terms of stimulus and probably see some positive changes. So these are usually the individuals who have a very easy time adding muscle mass or dropping body fat sometimes concurrently because they just have not really come close to their maximum potential because their training age is so young. So a lot of times these guys, even if their nutrition isn't quite dialed in or maybe isn't ideal, they can usually see some progress. Now, if you're on the other end of the spectrum, where you have a higher training age, you may be a little bit more experienced, possibly a little bit older, you're closer to your potential for lean muscle mass, you're going to see changes more slowly. And understanding which end of the spectrum that you're on is important in order to manage your expectations with your training program and your nutrition program, okay? If you are of an older training age, don't expect to see some of those newbie gains that you did when your training age was lower, okay? Manage your expectations. This is another step that commonly is overlooked. And this is especially important for the more seasoned or experienced athlete. If you have been on the job for some time, or perhaps you're just getting into the tactical space, but maybe you're at an older age, or maybe you've experienced some issues regardless of your age, dealing with energy levels, hormone fluctuations, then it's a good idea to always take a look at your biochemical hormone profile, getting lab testing done, figuring out if there's anything that needs to be addressed that's going to hinder your ability to see physical results. It's not unusual for somebody who's been operating in the tactical space for some time to deal with issues including high stress levels or cortisol, which can impair sleep, and vice versa. If you have a difficult sleep schedule, you're going to see elevations in your cortisol or your stress hormone levels. Shift workers especially are known to have disrupted cortisol patterns, and this can lead to different issues with blood sugar regulation, testosterone production, and bioavailability. This can lead to issues with thyroid functioning as well, even in males. So this is something we really want to pay attention to. It's always a good idea, no matter what kind of health you're in now, to get a baseline on this. And again, when you work with me, this is something that is typically going to be required. Other things we want to look at are things that are going to help keep your body durable. Vitamin D is one of those examples. When we're testing for vitamin D, what we're doing is trying to be preventative or proactive in terms of addressing bone health and musculoskeletal health. Vitamin D, among other micronutrients, but vitamin D is one that we can test to make sure that your bones are staying healthy. This is essential for regulation of calcium and bone health. It's low-hanging fruit. It's easy to do. We get your vitamin D checked. If it's low, which 75% of the population is low in vitamin D, then we get you on a supplement regimen. We get you retested, and we can knock that off the list. But there's a lot of you who aren't doing that. Habits, individual metabolism, sleep and stress patterns, hunger signaling. I touched on a few of these already, okay? But when we're drawing up your plan, when we're using the progressive performance process, and we're trying to prioritize and periodize your programming, all of these things are going to be important as well. Hunger signaling is a great way to determine what kind of shape your metabolism is in. So if you're eating maintenance calories, or maybe you're eating under maintenance calories and you're not experiencing hunger, this can be a real problem. This could be telling us that your metabolism maybe is not working as efficiently as it should be. Okay, so we want to address this. I always tell people, if you don't wake up hungry and you're training consistently, that could potentially be a problem, especially after you've gone all night without eating. Your body still burns calories at night. Not as many, depending on what you did for training the days previously, but you should be waking up somewhat hungry. And if you're not, like I said, potentially a problem. If you're not eating regular meals throughout the day, or potentially even skipping midday meals and you're not feeling hungry, then that's definitely a problem. So we want to address all of that. And that plays a role in assessing your individual metabolism. And then just your daily habits, right? What are you doing on a daily basis that's potentially creating a barrier for you? Or what's a barrier that you're potentially not addressing that, again, we could knock off sort of that list of things that are preventing you from maximizing your potential. And then, of course, we have periodization. So today we are just going to be talking about program layout and how to start the periodization process on paper. So I'm going to be sharing my screen in a minute so that we can go through an example of how I periodize programming for my clients. So when I'm working as your coach, we dive into periodization cycles, energy systems, how to address outcomes, and other considerations that should be structured around your annual program. These are all important and necessary to learn and apply to really get the full benefit of a periodized program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and give you an example of how we walk through periodization with my clients. So I'm going to switch screens here, and we're going to take a look now that we're going to break down into smaller pieces. Usually when we break down this macro cycle, it's going to consist of different phases. These could be monthly, these could potentially be quarterly. It really depends on the program that you're running. A lot of programs run on a monthly sort of macro cycle. You have longer programs, such as hypertrophy programs that can run anywhere between 8 to 12 to 16 weeks. Strength programs, which are typically going to run anywhere between 5 and maybe 8 weeks. And then, of course, you have longer programs as well, 365 programs, annual tactical training programs. There's all kinds of different things out there. For this example, we're just going to stay with sort of a linear periodization example. Okay. So once you have your annual macro cycle set up, and you've got your structured training program, which you should have, right? We're trying to do things at a higher level. It needs to be a little structured. We're going to essentially just break down that mesocycle, and we're gonna implement it throughout the whole year, right? So like I said, we're gonna follow kind of a linear periodization model. So if you're following the standard linear periodization model, typically that looks something like hypertrophy, strength, power, speed, and then maybe you might get into a conjugate program, or like I said, an academy or a selection prep program, or you might circle back around, okay? So each of these microcycles, okay, within the mesocycle, if I can get just one column highlighted here, is considered a microcycle. So this is where you're breaking your training periods within that training phase down into smaller chunks, okay? So a microcycle, typically going to be weekly. You can also break it down into daily, which we're not going to do today, but that is a possibility. You're going to essentially get that all out, plan it all week. How many weeks are we going to be doing that? And then you're going to be planning out transition periods. Now, transition period is important. When you're coming off or when you're doing a longer training program, or just any training program really, typically there's going to be something known as deload weeks in your programming, where the volume or intensity or both within your training is going to decrease by somewhere around 40 to 50%. This is important because this allows your body to really recover and super compensator. What super compensation means is that you don't really improve during your actual high intensity training weeks, right? You actually are potentially getting worse during your high intensity training weeks. That's why when you don't take deload periods or when you don't take transitional periods appropriately, that sometimes your performance gets worse because you never take that opportunity to recover, because recovery is where all of the performance gains happen. These deload periods or transition periods are a time for you to actually maybe get some refeeds in, maybe bump your calories a little bit if that's necessary, because that's all going to support recovery, which is then going to allow your body's lower baseline or minimum baseline of performance to actually improve. And when you apply this appropriately, it's going to help you improve more consistently. So we want to make sure that your programming is smart, that it makes sense, that it's progressive, and that there are deloads period worked in. Now, typically after a long program, sometimes not even a long program, but after most training cycles, usually I'll work in a transition phase for my athletes. So this transition phase is an extended recovery period where, again, the volume is much lower, where you're going to be focusing on nutrition, hydration, sleep, and you're going to be prepping for the next training cycle. If you're not taking this time to prep for the next training cycle, then you're not addressing some of the other important aspects of your training, which is psychological training. Psychological training is just as important as the nutrition and the actual training piece, right? So get your head right before you go into the next training cycle. Get your meal prep structured out, get your nutrition laid out. Make sure that you are treating this seriously, okay? Transition phases are really important. I've worked with several athletes who don't work in a transition phase, and then they end up in sort of an overreaching or potentially even an overtraining state. And that's where your performance is really going to suffer, and where you're going to suffer the effects of that on your metabolism as well. So we don't want to do that, okay? So now we've laid out, right, our mesocycle. So we got our hypertrophy, transition, strength, transition, power, transition. And guys, sometimes at the end of a long combined cycle, I will add in an additional transition week, especially if you're preparing to go into a higher level program. Okay, I promise you, you're not going to lose your gains in 2 weeks. Okay, it takes a minimum of 30 days for you to start to even see any detrimental effects on your overall strength or your aerobic conditioning. And that's assuming that you're not doing anything at all, right? You could hit some of your major lifts once a week and not see any negative effects, okay? So I promise you, a 2-week transition period is not going to hurt you. In fact, it's probably going to help you, okay? You might feel more amazing than you thought you could. So once we all have that laid out, including our aerobic training, our ancillary programming, then we want to move on to the nutrition piece. Nutrition is what's going to create the environment for your training stimulus to work at its most effective. So we have to have our training plan laid out first on paper. Now, when we go into our nutrition programming, understanding what you need in terms of body composition can be important, okay? A lot of times when someone's starting in a hypertrophy program, which is often characterized by high volume and the need for a great deal of recovery, they'll oftentimes go into a calorie deficit because they want to look cut, okay? They want to get jacked, they want to look cut, they want to lose body fat. Okay, this is not what hypertrophy is for. Hypertrophy is a weight gain program, period, okay? So you need to be in a surplus of calories, okay? And to be perfectly honest, if you have a shitty metabolism to begin with, and you've really struggled to lose weight, you definitely don't need to be in a calorie deficit. You need to be addressing your metabolic health, getting back up to maintenance calories at least, probably emphasizing some other lifestyle factors before your metabolism's even going to respond to a calorie deficit, okay? Again, don't start at step 5 when you should be starting at step 1, okay? So we're gonna program that in here. Now, typically during a hypertrophy program, I wouldn't program any refeeding cycles or maintenance periods or anything like that. We can just stay in a pretty stable surplus during that time. Now, as we move into strength and power, typically we want to be in a maintenance phase. Okay, now this isn't set in stone. I'm just giving you examples of how you could lay it out. There could be some opportunity during a strength phase where you could potentially go into a deficit or change your macros around a little bit to emphasize your body composition, lean muscle gain, or body fat loss. Okay, notice I didn't say end. But typically in a strength and power phase, we want to be in maintenance because we want to keep our power to weight ratios pretty stable. And during a power phase, if you're doing a true power phase, it's going to be very difficult to maintain training tempo, training recovery in a calorie deficit just because of the high demand on a power program. You're going to feel like donkey do if you're in a calorie deficit during a power phase. That's just the truth. If you can gut your way through it, great, good for you. It's not really going to do anything for you in terms of elevating your performance. Now, you might also see some concurrent training during this time. So your macros, your calories have to support that concurrent training as well. Okay. Now, with our nutrition periods, we don't necessarily need to put in transition periods here. What you might potentially see is if we decide to do, right, a deficit or a fat loss phase here, okay, is at some point we might need to, oh, I didn't mean to do yellow. We might need to work in a period of maintenance in order to reestablish metabolic baseline. Whenever you go into a deficit, depending on how long you go into that deficit for, okay, you might need to reestablish your metabolic baseline. Your metabolism will adapt to whatever calorie intake and calorie output you throw at it. When you're taking in less calories, eventually your metabolism will drop the amount of output, the amount of calories it burns in order to save calories because you don't have enough coming in to support not only your training, but your biological systems as well. This is called low energy availability, okay? It is a survival mechanism. Doesn't mean your metabolism is broke if you feel like you have a slow metabolism because you've been in a deficit for, you know, ever. It just means that you need to take strategic steps to get that metabolic rate increased in a healthy way. Okay, now if you're doing a short deficit phase, your maintenance phase doesn't have to be super long. Okay, if you're doing a longer deficit phase, you might need to actually include some refeed weeks during a phase like that. Refeed weeks are not where you just go ham eating whatever you want. It's essentially where you're strategically planning days of higher calories and or higher carbohydrates in order to, again, address your metabolic health and maybe help with your performance a little bit. Okay, so we have to plan that all out. And ideally, we're going to do that for the whole year. Okay, so I really hope that you guys can start to see how periodization can be beneficial. Not only does it help with ensuring that your program is dialed in, but it can actually help with your accountability, because when you can see the end goal, okay, it makes it much easier to stay on track. Now, some other considerations really quickly is, as you're laying this program out, you want to make sure that you're also taking note of any significant events that are coming up, right? So let's say you have a family and you're going on summer vacation and you know that's going to throw a wrench in your plans. You want to plan for that, okay? And you want to adjust your program accordingly, okay? So maybe if we can't be on a strict training program during this time because we're traveling, then we want to sort of incorporate that into what we're doing, right? So maybe we just focus on a run program during this time, because we don't necessarily need a gym to do that. You know, we can do it while our family's sleeping, essentially. You don't need much of equipment because you only need shoes, you only need pavement or someplace to run. So adjusting your program accordingly can be beneficial. And then, you know, it can be fluid. If things come up throughout the year, you just make changes as long as you're keeping the big picture goals in mind, okay? And the colors are just random. They don't really mean anything. But you can create whatever legend of colors that you want to, okay? You know, if you know about when you want to head off to academy or selection, right? You want to put that in here so that you can plan backwards as needed, okay? If you have a deployment cycle coming up, right? You want to be able to plan for that as well. One of the things that can happen during a peak deployment cycle, especially if the operational tempo is high, is you can have a difficult time hanging on to lean body mass. But you also don't want to be doing high volume training, because if you have to go out on the wire every other day or every day, then you have to be able to physically perform. So this is a situation in which nutrition becomes priority, especially over training, because you want to emphasize those nutrients and those calories that are going to be able to help you maintain that lean mass, you know, and then training might be, you know, you get it in when you get it in. It just depends, again, on your operational tempo. Now, if you're going to be deployed for a long duration stint, if you're in a more secure area, you know, if there's a little bit more predictability in your deployment schedule, which there can be for some individuals, you know, then we can adjust for that as well too. But typically in a peak season, deployment season, or just a season where you're going to be doing a lot of work and you're not really going to be able to train as you were earlier in the season, the emphasis should be on maintaining that lean muscle mass, okay? Not working in deficits, okay? So that's really the gist of it, guys. That's all I'm gonna give you for today. Like I said, if you're working with me, coaching, then we can go into some different things. We go a little bit higher level, we go a little bit deeper. But I'm telling you guys that this is the pinnacle. This works, right? So a lot of the clients that I've worked with have seen some really great results when we lay out their program like this, right? And I can't take credit. I didn't create nutrition periodization, right? Like, it's not my baby, but I want to give it to you, right? Because I think it's something that can really help you progress in what you want to do. You know, this is something that more dietitians, more sports dietitians should be teaching. But if I have the opportunity to do it for you, then I want to be able to do that. Okay. You know, so one of my clients, you know, he used periodization to really be able to sit back, take a view of his programming. He had a lot of reservations about what he could do, what he couldn't do. He was older, right? Had a higher training age and felt like some of his goals were unattainable. But when we sat down and we laid it on paper and we started working through the process, right, it became very clear that everything that he wanted to do was achievable because he had a long range target that he could see. And we were able to do that through periodization when we put his program together. All right. So when I'm working as your coach, okay, and we dive into periodization cycles, energy systems, outcomes, structured things, right? It can provide a lot of clarity. And I wish I could give that all to you guys on this call today, but I can't because we're already coming up on about 50 minutes or so. And I don't want to take up any more of your precious time. But hopefully what we've talked about today will help you get started. But if you're wanting more, then I want to give you more. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about how you can do that, how you can get more, how we can work together on structuring out a program that's for you, customized by you, individualized for you, by you, with my help, okay? Remember, I want to teach you how to fish, okay? So currently, as I want to walk you through kind of what I'm doing now with my clients. And then I want to introduce you to the program that we will actually be releasing in January. And if you guys are wanting to achieve that higher level, then I want to get you involved in it. So currently with my one-on-one clients, we do video chats on a monthly basis. We do lab testing sort of on an a la carte basis. We do nutrition programming written by me for you, and then we have a chat option. And this has worked well. You know, my clients who like for me to kind of do more for them, this has worked well for them. They enjoy it. But I have to be perfectly honest with you guys. I feel like sometimes I'm doing them a disservice because I feel like I could potentially be teaching them more. And, you know, they pay me this fee to coach them. And even though they're definitely learning when they're working with me, I want to be able to provide more value. And I don't want them to have to pay me oodles and oodles of money every single year just to stay working with me. So in order to provide more value at a lower cost, we are going to be releasing the Tactical Athlete Elite program in January. So this is going to be a coaching program for those individuals who want to achieve performance at a higher level. And all of my current clients are going to be moving into this programming in January. So this is going to be really the only program that we have. And I really feel like it's going to provide more value for everybody all around. And I'm going to take everything that I've learned over the last 10 years, everything that I've experienced with my clients over the last 10 years, and we're going to roll it all up into this program. And we're going to be able to do it for less money and provide more, which is super cool. So instead of just doing one video chat a month, if that, we are actually going to be doing 2 semi-private coaching sessions per month. So you're going to have 2 opportunities to work with me as your coach throughout the month. We're going to start including lab testing, okay? So these are going to look at lots of different endocrine measures for you guys: testosterone, estradiol. We're going to look at your thyroid function. We're going to look at vitamin D. We're going to look at your kidneys. We're going to look at your hydration status. We're going to check for other nutrient deficiencies. And we're going to do it at a discount. And that 12 lab tests is going to be included in the cost of your program. We're going to have 12 dedicated progressive lessons that are going to walk you through everything you need to know to start being your own nutrition coach. Okay, everything in the progressive performance process: how to self-assess, what to look for, how to build that self-awareness, how to execute your plan, how to track everything that you need on the nutrition side to really up-level your programming. And then this I'm really excited about. We're actually going to work on cognitive enhancement. What does that mean? You hear a lot of people talk about mental toughness, mental resiliency. But what does that really mean? Does that mean just being the tough guy all the time? It means developing skills and tools that are going to help you think through situations, react appropriately, manage your emotions, manage your reactions in situations when it matters the most, right? True mental toughness isn't just being tough. It's really being cognitively aware of yourself, your reactions, and how to react to certain situations. So we're going to bring in some cognitive enhancement coaches that are going to actually walk you through some of these practices. There are going to be some meal planning templates and tools and recipes to help get you started. So you guys are going to have a lot of opportunities to start building out meal plans. I'm going to provide some recipes for you. I'm going to make things as easy as possible for you to get going out of the gate, even if you know nothing about nutrition. We are also going to include training programs. So we have a tactical strength and conditioning coach that's going to be working with us, developing programs, providing for those for you guys if you need them. And the coolest thing about this is a lifetime coaching program. Okay, so what does that mean? It means we're going to work together for as long as you want to work together. You're going to be able to get coaching from me. You're going to have access to me, okay? And you're not going to have to pay thousands of dollars every single year. You're going to pay for a year, and then that's it. I'm your coach for life. You don't ever have to pay for coaching again. How cool is that? And that's how it should be, because by the end of that year, you should be fairly self-sufficient. You can still come see me twice a month, and I can help you evaluate your programs. I can help you learn more over the course of your training lifetime. But for the most part, we are going to get you to the point where you are a good steward of your own nutrition. How cool is that? Now, I've done this with, like I said, lots and lots and lots of athletes, okay? And what are some of the other benefits, that some of these athletes have seen after working with me, and we've applied the progressive performance process? So I had one athlete who came to me and was actually dealing with some low testosterone levels. Without giving away too much information, we were sitting somewhere in the mid 350s. And over the course of probably 8 to 9 months, we were able to actually increase his testosterone levels to almost 500 naturally, okay? Just by addressing some of the things that he needed to get consistent with, specifically sleep and nutrition. And we were able to do that and saw great improvements in strength, lower body fat percentage. Pretty much everyone who works with us sees improvement in multiple areas. But of course, that depends on the amount of work that you put into this, the amount of effort that you put into this, okay? But I can definitely guarantee you that you're going to get some benefit out of it for the most part. All right. So if you guys are still excited about this, you want to do this, you're like, yes, I want to learn how to be my own nutrition coach. I want to learn how to program, periodize, prioritize all of my nutrition needs, and you want to be able to do it at a high level, then I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that now. So when you sign up for the Tactical Athlete Elite program, you are going to get instant access to your lab testing. So as soon as you get into the program, as soon as you click that button, you put in your information, your lab testing is going to get ordered for you instantly. Now, I will put a little disclaimer in that if you are in New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, or outside of the United States, I can't offer you lab testing, okay? So if you are any of those individuals, then you're just going to go ahead and send me a message by clicking on the other button above to actually shoot me a text to let me know that you're one of those individuals, and I will send you a special link. But if you're not one of those individuals, as soon as you click on that button, your lab testing is going to start being ordered for you. You're going to get access to the Setup for Success series, which means you're going to get a checklist. You're going to get instructions on how to complete your lab testing. You're going to get information on how to complete all the steps that are going to be important for you to knock out before you start your coaching program in January. You're going to get access to a planner if you needed, a digital planner that you can download and start tracking progress on. The periodization sheet that I just showed you, the Excel sheet, you're also going to be able to download that and start building out your annual plan and start knocking some of those things out and get started immediately. You're going to get access to the meal planning tools, some recipes, some other things that you need to start looking at to get started, and some other videos that you can watch around this process that will help you get started off on the right foot. So if you are ready, go ahead and click that button and let's start working together. If you still have questions and you would like to get them answered, or maybe you'd like to schedule some time to talk one-on-one, we can definitely do that. All you have to do is click the button up there that says contact me. Thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate your time. And hopefully, even if you don't join the coaching program, hopefully you got some benefit out of this training that we are doing today. Because that's really what I wanted to do for you guys, is provide some benefit. That's always what I'm trying to do. But if you are ready to level up, then just click that button and I'll be waiting inside that program for you. Talk to you soon, guys.